So during the period that the web app was out, I managed to put together a fairly basic Premier League team. This was used in the early games on squad battles to get a sense of the game, and then I looked to upgrade that before I went into the Rivals placement games. There's a little bit of a time skip between when this team was created to when I actually went into the first game, so I spent a couple of days trading, a couple of days getting some coins together, doing SBCs, and I upgraded a couple of positions because I wasn't comfortable going into an online setting. So I'd used up the loans of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Virgil van Dijk, so I needed to replace those two positions. I wasn't particularly comfortable as well with going in with Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Foden as my two main central midfielders. So the players that came in for those positions were Joe Gomez at right centre-back, DeAndre Yedlin at right-back, Naby Keita at left centre-mid, and Hakim Ziyech at right centre-mid. I was also lucky enough to pack Raphael Varane during the 10-hour early access, which was a huge pull. Very pleased with it. I decided not to put him into the team as I didn't want to move away from the Premier League base I had, but I brought him on in game 1 and then decided to sell him after game 1 to make changes and improve the team for games 2 to 5. So let's get into game 1 and we'll have a little breakdown of what I was doing well and what I wasn't doing so well during the game. So this first clip is a good example of what most FIFA players tend to prioritise when they play FIFA, and that's quick combination play to break lines, specifically when they're transitioning from defence to attack. So as the ball gets played into the centre of the pitch, my player positioning is okay. I've got a numerical advantage at the back. The issue I make here is as the ball gets played in, I switch too late to Williams. And as I do that, his body position is all wrong. So as I come in to intercept the ball, he's coming in at the wrong angle to actually get that ball, which means that I completely miss it. There's a bit of a bobble. I'm now out of position. I haven't switched correctly in that situation, and it's put me on the back foot with then getting another player back in to try and track this run. Willian is a fairly fast off-the-mark player, so he quite easily gets away from Laporte. One thing that I want to make use of and utilise is my goalkeeper. So if I do get caught in these situations, I want to have a goalkeeper that can come out and smother a ball. What I wanted in this situation as well was I was hoping for a bad touch or a bad decision from this player. I saw the player inside, and as the clip runs on, he does a heavy touch, a push touch with Willian. He does it in the wrong area when he should have probably played through one of his other players, and then this leads to my keeper coming out and smothering the ball. But that's a good example of what not to do in terms of player switching from my side. I actually, not too long after that first clip, end up conceding the first goal of the game through a fairly similar situation. I have the ball and I make a poor decision and rush a pass. This opposition player, his first thought is always to want to break lines and get in behind. He can obviously see that my line's very high and he wants to utilise that pace that he has up front. So in this instance, it's Mikel Antonio. My player switching and player movement in this situation just isn't what you should do at all. I actually, instead of holding position with Phillips, bring him into the run of Antonio. I shouldn't have done that as Laporte's covering that area. I should have held my position and tried to block the pass through. What this then does as the ball's played through, I've been caught on the wrong side. Antonio slips behind and he's through on goal. Obviously with the pace that he has, there's no chance of me catching him once he's through like this. I tried to bring the keeper out, but it's a good finish and I am 1-0 down. This next passage of play was highlighted in my first video that I kind of explained the sort of main take points and main areas that my play style actually generates in game. This is a really, really good example of combination play out wide to get in behind and then create chances. So the combination play between Saka and Keita is nice. It drags three of his players into an area on the outside of the pitch and he has a massive gap behind his right back. Divock Origi has actually come over to support the play, so he's not sitting on the last man, he's kind of there as a link player. What I'm able to do then is pass it inside and then Saka has that entire space to run into. As the ball gets played out, Saka's not the fastest, unfortunately, and what he can't do is just, if I had a faster player there, I would have run straight down the line. What I then have to do in that situation is then cut back. Divock Origi then starts making a run up the pitch to actually drag away his centre-back, and Naby Keita comes towards the ball. The opposition player is actually in a fairly good position in this point. He's covering my players well, but what he makes the mistake of doing in the second is not player switching and moving his players into the right areas on the pitch. So as I pass it into Keita, he completely sells himself short with the player coming towards Keita. I turn him easily, put it out to Saka, do a quick 1-2. Again, his player movement to deal with that isn't good at all, to be honest. And I'm in and I'm behind. What I end up doing here isn't the correct thing. So I could have shot in this situation, or I could have done a cutback. There was a couple of different things I could have done. I actually decided to do a pass or a cutback too late. Luckily for me, I don't know how it turned out to be a penalty in my favour, and I tuck away the penalty after a very lucky chain of events, and it's 1-1. In this next passage of play, this was actually the moment I decided to sub on Raphael Varane. I was getting consistently caught out at the back and I didn't have the recovery pace. In this particular situation, I'm not in a good position. I don't have a numerical advantage at the back. It's 2v2, and then I'll have Laporte, who isn't particularly fast, who's been dragged all the way out to the wing. So as this ball's played over, I don't switch into John Stones quickly enough, which is my biggest mistake. And then all it takes is a push touch from Antonio and he's away. I try and make a tackle, try and bring the keeper out, but it's a fantastic finish, and I'm 2-1 down, and I'm not feeling particularly comfortable with how I'm defending against this opposition player's style of play. I had an opportunity just before half time, which I actually messed up the initial pass through to Divock Origi. My reaction to this mistake actually leads to me getting back into the game. As you can see, as I pause it here, there is a man-for-man system that's been put in place. So unless this opposition player goes long, which he doesn't decide to do, there's no way of him getting out of this in a clean manner. So the opposition tries to pass it out to his fullback. My player is on him immediately. I'm able to intercept the ball. I have it into Minamino, who slips through Divock Origi. The shot should go in. It's a little bit scrappy. It's a little bit messy, but it gets us back in the game and we're in a better position going into halftime. Into the next passage of play, this is actually a really good example of when I have my set of 5 players running into the box and how it can create disorganisation for the opposition. So as the ball gets played out to Minamino, he's in a 1v1 situation. The players haven't arrived into the box yet, so I have to delay what I want to do so it gives them time to get into the box. I decide to cut back. With my fullback having instructions of actually getting forward and supporting the play, this gives me a passing option where if I had him on stay back, he wouldn't necessarily be in that position. I can pass it out to him. I wait, pass it back into the middle. I now have 4 players for his 4 players in the box as well. So this actually creates disorganisation and he doesn't know which players to switch to in this situation. All it takes is a quick cut back to the edge of the box. Divock Origi's free in the middle, in between the 2 centre-backs. He doesn't switch players quickly enough. By the time he does, I've already got the ball into Origi, and it's a simple finish into the near post. With the final 2 clips from this game, there isn't really too much to analyse. For the corner, it's just a case of him being reactive rather than blocking space. So instead of actually preventing me from going into the area by marking space, he tries to go man for man. He ends up running out of position, and it's just an easy cut back to Shaqiri to make it 4-2. It's so late in the game that he is kind of going hell for leather, trying to get back into the game and kind of throwing everyone forward, which wasn't his plan earlier on in the game. He was a lot more of a safe defender than a on the front foot defender. So the final clip is essentially in the 90th minute. I do some combination play down the wide areas. He's very, very, very aggressive moving forward, completely misses the ball. There is a huge gap at the back, which Phil Foden runs onto, and it's just a case of keeping composure, making the right decision, and doing an easy square to Shaqiri, who then scores an easy tap in to end the game 5-2. After the first game, I then decided to invest the Raphael Varane money back into the whole team. So I essentially looked to improve every single position on the team. I didn't feel comfortable after that first game, and I was making too many mistakes for my liking. What I decided to do was get pace and dribbling ability and movement into the team. So how I did that was invest in Alisson in goal, as he was one of the most comfortable with the ball at his feet keepers on the game. I bought Renan Lodi and Nelson Semedo for the fullback positions. They had pace, good dribbling ability, and they could track back on runs really well as well. And then I looked to partner Joe Gomez with Eder Militao, who I managed to snipe when he was at his lowest by now. For the central defensive midfield position, I decided as well that Calvin Phillips was a good option, but I wanted someone who was more comfortable on the ball. So I lost Calvin Phillips's physical ability, but then I upgraded him to Thiago. So I got someone who had some of the best touch and feel on the ball in the entire game, which was important for the build-up play. I then improved the central midfielders to be Marcus Llorente and Bernardo Silva, one with a physical and pace element, and then the other one with ability on the ball and passing. I then had Ansu Fati and Rodrigo on the wings, as they were a big upgrade on the wingers I currently had. And then I had Inaki Williams as a striker up front to be a focal point for the team. So the team had changed to that for the start of game 2, and so we'll get into the game now and see how I got on. My opponent in the second game really struggled with just sort of general control of space. So in the first clip here, he doesn't deal well with my sort of tight and close dribbling in the box, and Ansu Fati scores to make it 1-0. For the second goal, I do some good build-up down the wide areas, again making the combination between the winger and the central midfielder. Inaki Williams is there as a focal point. He's always dragging away that central defender that opens up that space for Rodrigo. Again, my opponent doesn't deal well with the tight dribbling, and I make it 2-0. It was important against this opponent to kind of drag him out of position because he didn't hold his position well on the pitch. So I did that with Semedo here. This opened up the space for Llorente. It's a fantastic run from Williams, and it makes it 3-0 in the first half. There's not much to analyse in this fourth goal. It's just really, really poor from my opponent. Doesn't pass out well, and I get the rebound and score to make it 4. For the fifth goal, it was important to be patient in the build-up. He was holding a fairly good line, but I was looking for areas out wide to kind of get that space. I get it inside to Bernardo Silva after a pass back, and it's 5-0. And then for the sixth goal, it's just not good player switching from my opponent. He doesn't read the run correctly. It's a ball roll around the keeper, and it's a simple goal. This game wasn't particularly difficult, so there wasn't too much to analyse, and my opponent just wasn't as comfortable dealing with the mechanics of the game. So I didn't think it was right to kind of break it down, because there wasn't much that you could learn from it. 4 games, 3, 4 and 5, I actually played all the games one after one another. So I actually got into sort of a really good level of rhythm and consistency with what I was doing. So after building up fairly slowly in the middle, I bring it out wide, and I noticed that the opponent doesn't track the run to Llorente in the middle of the pitch, all over the place, and he gets a fine shot into the far corner. Fast and aggressive pressing of the ball wins it back high up the pitch. I get it into Inaki Williams. It's a very lucky bobble back to me, but I have to finish it into the far post and I do it well. So another opponent that's struggling to deal with sort of the quick, tight dribbling, I pass it into the box, get Inaki Williams on the ball, turn quickly, and it's a simple finish into the far corner. So I go short from a corner. I want to work it back into the box as I feel like that's more effective. My opponent's struggling with the player switching inside the box. I get it to Inaki Williams, he takes up a good position, and after that my opponent quits as he's 4-0 down in 20 minutes and he can't get back into the game. So my opponent in the fourth game was actually one of the better players that I played out of the 5 placement games. The scoreline won't suggest it, but he was actually good at blocking off spaces and actually maintaining a good team shape. So I'm having to go down the wing a little bit here, moving it inside. He's maintaining a good defensive line, but I combine well between Inaki Williams and Bernardo Silva to put myself 1-0 up quite early on. So for 2-0, I have some good penetrative runs from midfield. Rodrigo makes a good run inside. His defence is a bit unorganised, and it's a good finish into the corner. Being really aggressive on second balls is a really important part of the play style, and I get one here in the middle of the pitch quite high up. He's panicking a little bit, and a good 1-2 between my attacker and Llorente allows me to go 3-0 up with a near post finish. I go 4-0 up a little bit after the third goal. It was a little bit lucky, obviously, with the rebound, but he's panicking a little bit now, and I make use of that with a near post finish with Bernardo Silva. As I was 4-0 up, I don't know whether it was a bit sort of lazy defending from me, but I pushed towards the ball when I just shouldn't have. That just made a massive gap for his attacker to run into, and his player scores to make it 4-1. Again, there's a theme of me winning the ball high up the pitch, creating disorganisation, and it's a good ball through to Bernardo Silva, and it makes it 5-1. this 6th goal doesn't even really count. It's just a really bad decision from him, and it makes it 6. So moving into the final game, I was 4 wins out of 4, and I was feeling confident going into this last one as I was having a good rhythm with how I was playing. My opponent didn't seem particularly comfortable with defending, and his high line was just all over the place at the beginning of this game. It was good movement from Rodrigo, and it was a simple pass across to Inaki Williams, but yeah, poor defending from my opponent for the first goal. The 2nd goal comes pretty much immediately after the first one. I'm not sure what his decision making was there, maybe it was a misclick, but good composure from me taking it around the keeper, and it makes it 2-0 straight away. Again, a really disorganised high line from my opponent, and it was a good through ball to Rodrigo. He's obviously a very fast player. I have a lot of players up in support, and it makes it 3-0. And it was so early in the game that I don't think my opponent wanted to stay around, and he quits at 3-0. And so that was the end of the 5 placement games. I was really happy with my performance after the first game. I ironed out the mistakes that I felt I was making in that first game. And games 2 to 5 were really strong, and I controlled them well. Nice 124,000 coins as a reward for doing it, and we start in Division 2. So that's the end of the video. I had to get through quite a lot of the content in each of the games, so the video is going to be a little bit longer than I originally planned. But hopefully you take something from the gameplay that I had and the things that I was talking about in regards to attacking and defending. In the next video, it's going to be the one to watch Diego Jota objective, and there's going to be a breakdown of my weekend league games and how I got on in the first weekend league of the year.